Okay, it's 3 minutes after 3, and I'm going to call this meeting to order, the Coastal Resilience Committee of the Town of New Shoreham. Before we get started with our guests, I did want to make sure that we had a period for open comment from the public, and I know Sosha has a public comment, but if anyone else does, please go ahead and use the center mic and please turn it on. Make sure the little green light is on while you speak, since we are live on YouTube.
Dear Judy, it takes a great leader to pull it all together, one who provides a vision and direction towards a better future for all. Thank you for taking the helm when others were afraid to. Thank you for cultivating a community of concerned citizens through science-based education. Thank you for supporting people's strengths, for coordinating efforts both locally and nationally, for taking excellent notes and communicating. You have been an inspiration to all of us. I'm so very grateful for working with you. Included in this card is a check from all of us. I checked with Jules because I wanted to get something specific, but he wisely told us, you might like to spend it on a painting or supplies for your new office and your new addition. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice surprise. Thank you. Well, is there any other public comment?
Just kidding.
Is it, do we get the counterpoint to the point? No, thanks you guys very much. It's, as you know, been an honor for me, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm just gonna change seats, and hopefully you won't have to hear my voice as often. Thank you. Oh, it's so sweet. Totally unexpected. So I'm receiving this because I'm stepping down as the chair of this committee. This is my last meeting. And we haven't voted yet, but for the folks from the Coastal Institute, Anne Salinas in the front row here is going to be the new chair, if that is the way if that's the will of the group in January. At this point, she's the only one who's hat in the ring. So far it's a competition of one. But anyway, thanks so much. I feel flushed. I would like to introduce everyone today to our new partners at the Coastal Institute at the University of Rhode Island. The Coastal Institute, for those of you who had attended earlier, is an organization, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but an organization that is sort of a nexus for bringing together needs and funding, so that even if they don't have a bunch of funding themselves, they pulled it together and make things happen in the state of Rhode Island. Do you go beyond the state of Rhode Island?
Yes, we do some
okay.
work. In fact, recently we merged with another group at
Okay.
URI,
Oh.
Coastal Resources Center, which has a whole international portfolio of work related to fisheries management and coastal resilience. But most of the work that the core staff of the CI does has been focused in Rhode Island. Yeah.
Would you guys like to introduce yourselves before we get started, or yeah, that'd be better than me trying to. Go ahead.
Sure. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name's Nathan Vinatero. I work at URI. I'm the science director of the Coastal Institute, and I have a research background in coastal geology.
You have to use the mic. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jackie Wittershine. I'm the research specialist at the Coastal Institute, and my background is environmental management and sustainability and public outreach. So I'm kind of combining it, kind of transverse the line between those two things.
Hi, everyone. And I'm Amber Neville with the URI Coastal Institute, and my focus is communications and outreach and grant management.
Awesome. And Brian, the inimitable.
So Brian Oakley, I'm a senior fellow at the Coastal Institute, but that's not a job. I'm a professor at Eastern Connecticut, and I've been working on island geology issues now for going back a while. So I've been around. You guys have all seen me before.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. So grateful to have you here. The Coastal Institute has named Block Island as a climate response demonstration site. Did I say that correctly? That was on real-time data gathering from the brain. And this is an opportunity for us to work with the Coastal Institute on issues that are important to Block Island. And I'm so happy to see so many people here in the audience, because this is also your opportunity to say to the Institute what's important to you as a member of the committee or as a member of the public. And it's very important for them to understand sort of where we're coming from, so that as we continue this partnership, that we're all working together. And so, and that we all have a really good understanding of what each of our priorities are. So the first point, I'm going to ask Nate or someone else to talk about the demonstration site and what that means, and what you need from us in terms of that. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is it okay if I share my screen here? So we have a short presentation here. There we go. And yeah, just again, as a bit of a background about the Coastal Institute. So we are a university institute. We were formed about 25 years ago at URI, primarily to sort of foster interdisciplinary coastal research among different groups at the university, but also to be sort of a conduit between the research entity at URI and communities like New Shoreham, to sort of get research out to groups, partners at the federal, state level, and also communities. And so we're just four of us. There's four staff at the Coastal Institute, but collectively we kind of represent the interests of about 250 senior fellows of the Coastal Institute. The newest senior fellow of the Coastal Institute is actually right here to my left. Welcome to the Coastal Institute. So yeah, we have a few slides here, just a little update on what's happened since we were out here in May. And then a little bit, you probably remember that at the time we showed a very draft version of a story map that sort of highlighted some of the research that's been going on Block Island. So I'm going to give you a little update on that. Amber's going to talk a little bit about, the next steps on engagement, how we'd like to hear from you actually on some of the priorities as a committee that you think that would benefit from engagement with the research community at URI. And also potentially how we could partner on some fundraising efforts. And then myself and Brian are gonna kind of run through sort of a high-level review of a proposal that we submitted to Rhode Island Sea Grant in the summer. We are still pending final approval on that, but signs are looking good. So we're gonna kind of go through the sort of a scope of work, what we plan to do in terms of research over the next 2 years, and how we can engage with the committee and other potential groups out here. So yeah, I'll start off just by showing you that we now officially have launched Block Island as our newest climate response demonstration site. So if you go to the Coastal Institute website, this URL down here, or like I can leave these slides, this QR code will take you to this site as well. And if you click on that tab, I'm going to stop sharing and change to a different screen, show you what it looks like. Okay. So clicking on this tab will launch a story map, which is all about the sort of climate challenges, the setting of the island, what the different research initiatives that have been going on out here over the past 5 or 10 years, that are in some way connected to the Coastal Institute through our senior fellow network primarily. So I don't necessarily want to, do a whole demo of this thing, but there's some really cool features. This is all ArcGIS based. There's things like swipe maps where you can visualize some of the erosion that's happening. This section here guides you around the island to show some sort of critical areas where we see and where we've heard so far that there are issues related to resilience and coastal planning. And then this tab here will take you, and these tabs just are ways to advance. This is all one continuous scrolling document. So this sort of highlights the different research initiatives that our Coastal Institute senior fellows are involved with. So you're familiar with many of these, obviously the work that Brian's done out here on beach profiling. And actually we have some of this profile data up here on the site. If you go each site where there's profiles being done, Brian gave us this data to share. So there's oblique view of the site and then some sort of year-on-year data to look at. So you can scroll through and see all of those locations. This is a section that summarizes the work that Annette Grilly and her team, actually Brian and I are both involved in that project, have been doing out here. And I know that she's been out to present to this committee.
Thing about Annette, one of the interesting and unique things about living in Rhode Island, where everyone knows each other, is Mike Gardner, who is our GZA representative on the Corn Road project. It was one of Annette's students. And so GZA is also working with Annette on the modeling aspects of the GZA contract. So
we both Brian and I met Mike out in California a few weeks ago. Yeah, so we connected in Long Beach about Block Island. This is work that has been done by Tom Boving. I mentioned this about depth to groundwater studies and water availability. So some of that research is summarized here. Anyway, the list goes on here, and the last of this has to do with the project that Brian and I are going to talk about in a little bit, this Bluff to Beach project, which is really looking at getting a kind of first order sediment budget for the island, and also developing some tools for visualization of coastal process data. So let me go back to my slide deck here.
Mike's on the phone. Hi, Mike.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Wrong. Oh, no, this is it. Yeah. Can't tell if I'm on the website. The screenshot of the website. There it is. All right. So, Amber, do you want to take over here for a minute?
Sure. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about some collaborative grant making opportunities and some of the feedback that we'd like from all of you. As Nate said, we have over 250 coastal fellows. Many of those are URI researchers, but it's also other researchers throughout Rhode Island and regionally, and our job is to help connect them. We provide small seed grants to those researchers, so if we can hear back on the research needs, we can reach out to our network and connect you with the right person. And the other strength of the Coastal Institute is that we have worked with many towns and cities to write grants together. All of the climate demonstration sites are collaborative, and we work with multiple nonprofits or the city and towns involved, and we stay there long term. So it's a great strength to us to have partners, especially in the current fundraising environment. So we'll be hopefully getting some feedback today, and if not, we'll share our email so we can hear other research needs. Sure.
I just, the idea of not competing against other towns is really important in Rhode Island. And the Sea Grant led Coastal Resilience Learning Network, Climate Resilience Learning Network. Anyway, that one of the basic tenets of that learning network is the same that we don't want to be competing with each other when we go to the state, that we want to have had that conversation in advance, and that we all support sort of a cooperative vision about, whose projects are most important and who, and at some point you just have to let go and say, I'm the most important person in the room. But we want to, but we're really, the goal of all of this is to have all the towns work together, so that if we're tackling similar challenges, that we're actually addressing them together. And yeah, and anyway, so far so good. I mean, in the creation of the state plan, the state resilience plan, I think that was expressed throughout the development of that plan. But I think that was a really important point to make. Thank you.
And maybe I'll just back up a little bit. I know we presented on this when we were here last time, but just as a review, we have Block Island is the 4th demonstration site that we're supporting. Each one of these looks a little different. So we partner with the Watch Hill Conservancy to support research down at Napa Tree Point. Brian's also, very involved in that work. We have a mixed use demonstration site that represents communities in the East Bay, Bristol County. So Barrington, Warren, and Bristol. Largely there, we're working with town officials, like on the planning, town planners and resilience officers. And so
And
forth.
is that the one where they're like trying to relocate Main Street? Is that part of that?
Yeah, so the Market to Metal
Market to Main, thank you.
project, yeah, sort of was born out of some of the earlier work that the demonstration site supported. And that's actually a really good point that I was going to get to, but that I'll emphasize is that what we found is that sort of the early investment by the Coastal Institute at some of these locations has led to a lot of further success with grant funding. So just even the designation of demonstration site and the support of several pilot projects in an area, it becomes more attractive to funders. So yeah, Market to Metacom is a perfect example of that, where we had done some, supported a lot of workshops in the area, supported some student projects there, worked with the town for a while, and then they were able to take a lot of that and use it to hit the ground running and get further funding. We just compiled, we had to do some reporting for the URI Faculty Senate. You'd have to submit like a 5-year report. And we, for the first time, kind of tallied up the projects that we saw were somehow associated with demonstration sites. And it was about $10 million of funding that has gone into these communities. Some of them are large, large NSF research grants. Some of them are a few $100,000, but as we know, every little bit counts. So anyway, to get back to what Amber was saying, what we were really hoping to do, and we don't have to hear this now, but we would like to hear at some point from the committee about issues that you think that engagement with the research community could help support. And this does not necessarily have to be something that's exclusively coastal resilience based. Our senior fellow network is, there's people who are coastal geologists, there's researchers in environmental economics, there's modelers, there's
Fisheries.
Yep. There's attorneys, lawyers, and so forth. So yeah, so this could be a discussion at this point, or it could be just something to sort of seed at the moment, and we can.
Well, I'd like to hear from another committee member or anyone from the audience about what you think, because I've just spent 3 hours telling these folks what I think is important for them to focus on, or for us to focus on, and what our research questions are. But Mary, you're shaking your head in the back and making eye contact. You want to come up and?
It's an old question. I think that was referred to as the white elephant. Thanks for everybody coming. It's great to have you. And great to have this joint effort. But one thing that comes to mind, especially with our last presentation to town council, is, and I know that you went to Crescent Beach today. What are your thoughts about moving the beach pavilion in that area? I'm just gonna put you on the spot.
I guess me.
No pressure. You personally, like, just, yeah, what can, it's a simple question.
I haven't thought much about it, but I was just looking at the map over here and,
Yeah,
you know, the ideas for the beach house. And the one
Yeah.
that stood out to me was put it on wheels.
yeah.
I like that. So
Yeah.
make it sort of modular, movable.
Mhm.
They're doing that, as Brian pointed out, in other areas down in Assateague.
Yeah, you were.
They bring,
Today.
yeah, they bring assets in and they bring assets out.
It,
I've shared before my acronym.
Please on the mic though, because we're on recorded.
So my acronym with this stuff that I've shared before is REAM, because there is no good outcome, your cost. Retreat, elevate, adapt, mitigate. So retreat and elevate should be 1 and 2, and done ideally at the same time. So move it back and move it higher. That's the best way to protect it.
you more than anyone know how fragile that barrier beach is. Moving
Yeah.
it back and moving it up.
Yeah.
Is,
Put it on pilings, move it back.
buys you some time, I
It
guess.
buys you time, and then it would allow you to figure out how to protect it with closing in the dune a little bit in front.
Yeah, exactly. That was my next question. Nigel has brought this up before of what, maybe that's not the site for it either. It's the sort of the narrowest part where Great Salt Pond and the
The more,
more atmospheric motion of the ocean
I mean,
are most active,
Mhm.
shall we say.
I'm less worried about that aspect of it and breaching there. I think if you want to protect the infrastructure, move it back and move it
Ah.
up.
Mhm.
Tuck it into a corner of the parking lot, do something like that
Mhm.
creatively on the site
Yeah,
without moving it drastically and excavating another part of the dune or impacting a
Right.
different part of the dune to move it. Probably the easiest fix. And the lowest cost versus finding
Yeah.
another site and relocating everything.
and then you mentioned also the repairing the dunes, if you will, on either side, the north side and the southeast side of the pavilion.
Well, just in front of, yeah.
Just
the
in
pavilion,
and in
there
front
is
of
no
it.
dune.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
that's
There's
vital.
nothing there. But also on either side of it too?
I mean, the dune to the south is is one of our profile sites is huge.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
don't have to do much there. And the dune to the north's pretty good too. You just got to fill in the gap in between.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that whole stretch, some of those biggest dunes in Rhode Island are between the pavilion and Scotch Beach. So you guys got great dunes.
we just.
Thanks,
need
well, we're
keep
happy to
them
have all these.
closed.
Right, it's just, want them to just, connect again right there.
Right, just to, and the whole point here for the audience is to protect the road for a while. I mean, in the current sea level rise scenario that we're living in, which could change tomorrow and the big glaciers could come back in, but for where we're living right now, yeah, we have to think about sea level rise and storms that ride on top of that little bit of sea level rise that make such a big difference in whether they get over to the road or not, whether the water reaches the road or not. We are just trying to delay the inevitable. We understand that the road is going to be gone at some point, but if we can put that off for 10, 20, 30 years, that's a really good investment for this town. And that was what we came to with the town council, was that we're going to protect Corn Neck Road for as long as we can.
Yep.
And try and do it using nature-based solutions, since the road is not ours. It belongs to the state.
Yeah.
And plus, we want to get as much credit for what we've done so that they feel sorry for us and actually help us when the time comes.
Right, helpful to FEMA too. If
Yeah,
that still exists.
guilt them into, yeah. And what we're doing right now is trying to get designs so that when funding does become available, then we're able to take advantage of it. And that's what we're working on with GCA right now.
Right, and those designs show that we're ready and
Right.
we've done this work and we're a site to be considered for FEMA grants too.
Sure,
Yeah.
anything. Yeah, especially, well, FEMA, if that still exists.
Yeah.
If there's a big storm, the recovery money requires, in order to get it, you either get back exactly what you have, or if they approve
Yeah.
if you've got something in design so that doesn't happen again,
Right.
they'll consider that.
Thanks for sticking your neck out there. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there other areas, Sosha, yeah.
So there is a digital flood insurance rate map, as you know, and it's issued by FEMA, and it lists all kinds of zones, flood zones. And what I'm interested for this committee in learning is to identify the structures which are at risk of flooding or frequent flooding and would eventually be eligible for zoning relief in setbacks and building heights. Now, I know the map exists digitally. I'd love to see one that is hands-on so that we can communicate to the town council the rationale behind changing the zoning ordinances. So that's number one. And number two is a wish, is a dream. I wish there were a database from all over, let's say, New England, coastal areas, where information is shared on that one base, so that when we look for example, for grants, we don't have to look all over the place. And that's it.
That's a lovely goal. I probably had that conversation every year I worked for the federal government. Yes.
And you're probably aware of the work that the Ocean Engineering Department at URI and Malcolm Spalding has led through the Storm Tools Initiative. And I think they even did some work out here. So one of the products that they've developed is, I think they call it SDE, is that right?
Yeah, a Siri and then SDE or the design elevation.
Yeah, design elevation, which would be similar to a firm or a D firm, which kind of shows the floodplain structures in the floodplain, but under future scenarios. So taking into account, so it's one thing to, make the firms that are based on statistical data, backward-looking data of storm risk. But these are more forward-looking, saying, okay, well, what is a storm with 2 or 3 feet of sea level rise on top of it going to look like, and what additional structures are going to be in the floodplain? So those are, as far as I know, I don't think the Block Island maps are actually digital. Do you happen to know?
I do
does
not.
somebody have them?
Are the Block Island Storm Tools maps, are they digital? Okay.
They're on the town GIS? Okay. I don't think they're on,
No, they're on the one that Jean-Louis is working on.
Is working on,
with
okay,
the
yeah.
University of Michigan.
okay. Yeah, I don't think that they're on the actual Storm Tools web hub at this point, but anyway, I think that would be another important tool to consider in addition to this, DFirm
We're going to try and get on the
product that.
web hub.
Well, I also, they did the Siri, I was just looking at it, where they looked at structures and looked at impact to structures, I think by type, residential, commercial. But I don't think they've done, I'm looking at the map, they haven't done, but they did Block Island. No, I don't think they've done
No.
Block. So
They've done it, but it's just not on the Storm.
Siri stuff
They've
like
done
that.
the Siri as well. I think that's.
So maybe that's a direction. How
Yeah.
do we get that into the digital, into the world?
Yes. So yeah, that's actually something that we should be able to act on.
That's awesome. Yeah, that would be great.
Question?
Nigel, oh yeah, please come on up.
So I wasn't sure if this was within your purview or not, but I think you alluded to it in your brief introduction, Nate. Groundwater and the influence of sea level rise, saltwater intrusion, especially in times of drought, which we've seemed to have been having recently. And the effects of rain too on the available groundwater for wells. Everyone here depends on wells in one way or another. How good is an island database on depth of the aquifer and the health of the aquifer? I certainly don't know that, just maybe because I'm not well informed, but it'd be nice if you guys were involved in that.
Yes, yeah, we can bring that feedback to our senior fellows. There's a couple new faculty at URI that are focused on climate and groundwater issues. I mentioned Tom Boving. He's been at URI for quite a while, and he's done a little bit of work out here. But yeah, to me, when I think about the climate challenges that Block Island is facing, we've been focused on these coastal issues, but if I were a resident here, I would personally be most concerned about water availability on the island, just the infrastructure and the availability of fresh drinking water, given the demands that happen in the summertime here.
Yeah, well, I think, for the first time in the, I don't know, 30 years we've owned a house here, we've actually had some well issues that had nothing to do with, the pump. It had to do with the well clearly starting to run dry, or at least input rates of water were being exceeded by output rates of demand. And I'm just wondering if those are starting to become general issues, and, whether other people have experienced any strange well behavior in recent times.
Thank you, Nigel. Actually, those are really good questions. I know that Tom was, he showed a map of all the wells that he looked at very quickly, but I know he did the one right next door to our house. I was fascinated to see the tidal signal in my 125-foot well. I thought that was fascinating. And just so that you know, the town water that is delivered to all of the hotels and the marinas and everybody that draws from the town water, that is all taken from deep wells that are below the freshwater aquifer. They're in the brackish layer there, and it's all reverse osmosis, and then stored in the big tanks on Sands Pond Road. And they're the reverse osmosis is super sensitive to the salinity of the water, so they go from one to the next to make sure that they aren't starting to draw down fresh water, or it doesn't become too salty because they pulled all the less salty water out of that area. So they're moving around. That's the way the water manager described it to me. Anyway, but I think that's a really important point. And my understanding is that we were at capacity without the addition of the new wells and the new tank that we've gotten just in this last year. But there was no ability on the town water supply for someone to build a new hotel, for example. And now with more water available, now the town can start to consider some of those questions. And I think we as a community really need to think about, and this is a broad question, but for the community, but what is the carrying capacity of this island? Because the other thing that is the other end of the sewage, the other end of water cycle, which is sewage, sorry. And sewage is a real issue out here. We have, my understanding, tertiary treatment, and it goes out off, and there's a little groin out there. Somebody asked me a question if that groin is capturing sand and starving our beaches of sand. It's right next to the revetment, so there's kind of no sand there. But what doesn't go out is solids. And right now we have to make reservations for the sewage trucks for the summer before we even know how many people are coming. And so that's a real challenge for us. So it's the whole carrying capacity issue. Also, the solids all go to the Johnston landfill, and all of us are suffering under the threat of closure over the next decade or more of that landfill. So I think carrying capacity of the island is a really interesting social research issue.
Yeah.
And it's not just Block Island. I mean, that's applicable to all of the beach towns then. Yeah. Oh, George.
So I'm sorry, I've got to put my shellfish hat on here, but are shellfish considered a coastal resource or within your purview at all? Because we're certainly studying that here on the island, and people do raise concerns as the environment changes. How's it going to affect their population?
Yes, absolutely. That's in our purview. And we work with, aquaculture researchers and also aquaculture extension folks. So, yeah, if there's specific projects or monitoring or something like that, that you'd like us to bring to our fellows, happy to do that.
Great. I will be in touch.
Okay.
Yeah, Anne.
So related to that, that's Great Salt Pond related. I think there's a need to look at all the different research and data that's been collected around the Great Salt Pond and do sort of a holistic assessment of areas that need additional focus and protection. So I think that's something that, and that could include shellfish. One area, priority area that for the committee is Ocean Avenue North, which is where the Bimmy is, and that area is already experiencing flooding. But we've never done any kind of assessment or study, no risk assessment, nothing of that area. So any initial assessment, I think, would be really helpful there. And I always go back to whether we need an island-wide climate risk assessment or coastal, flooding, erosion risk assessment. We've never done that. So we have all these snippets, but we haven't looked at the holistic picture. I don't know if that's something that you all could do, but okay. All right. So those are my ideas.
Thank you.
Anybody from the audience that's not a member of the committee? No? Okay. Okay, well, I'm very interested in the Bluff mediation projects. We toured one today, a couple today. Well, we looked at them, and I'm, very interested in what the town's long-term thoughts are about Bluff mediation projects. I mean, I come out here, I live here because it's such a beautiful place, and I think the bluffs are part of the beauty. But if everyone who has bluff property is allowed to do a major mediation, then all of a sudden that changes how it looks to me. So there's an aesthetic piece that I think needs to be part of the conversation. And even more important than that is the discussion of the Bluff to Beach project that you guys are going to talk to us about. If sand is considered a common good and you do a bluff mediation project that starves the beaches of sand and affects our tourism industry, where does that line get drawn? When do you stop allowing mediation? And how do we do it as a town in a way that's fair to both the tourists and the people who live at the top of the bluff 3 inches from the edge? How do we make it a fair process for everyone? I think those are all really important projects. The beach house is huge. We really need to get on that one, as long as our first warden is first warden. Even after that, he's going to be on us to take care of that. And we're really grateful because that indicates a political will. The physical processes are one thing, the financial processes are another, but having the political will to take on the community who loves that beach house that's a different thing. And so it's really nice to have that support in the town right now. But so I think a lot of what we're describing here, it's not just physics research, it's ecosystem research, and it's sociological and community-based research. So I think there's a lot of opportunities out here. Besides, who would want to work anywhere else?
That's right.
Is there anyone else that would like to offer? And do you guys have any ideas? Brian has probably a million. Oh, Jean-Louis, yay, go ahead. Okay.
About two parts. The capacity is very important. When we talk about moving the beach house, that's mean you are losing spot for the parking lot. Like,
Yeah.
nobody knows how many cars is coming on the island, how many spots of parking you need. Oops. So I think capacity is very important. Is maybe a little bit political, but very important. And the legal way, the way you describe between the private who need to preserve his house and the people who want to have a very beautiful beach, this is legal. There is the need to look at the law, the zoning. I mean, there is a lot of part who need to be looked at. So that's the two important points I wanted to
Thank you.
describe with my
Thank you.
friends.
And yeah, we've actually been involved in a little bit of that work already. Not on Block Island, mostly on the south shore of the state, particularly around like the new state law, redefining sort of the public access
Right.
easement at the high water mark. And so through that, yeah, there's actually been some legal related research done at URI. It's not quite as dramatic as it is here. There's erosion happening everywhere in the state, but when you have big bluff failures, that's a completely different situation. But it's not unprecedented. There is, there are examples of legal decisions that deal with active landscapes. Erosion and accretion and whatnot. So yeah, but we'd be happy to bring that to our community as well. And should we advance on to
Sure. Yeah.
the discussion of
This-
bluff to beach?
yes,
Do
please.
you want to take it from here for a little bit?
Sure. Hi, everybody. So for a while now, obviously, I started working out here in 2013, I think was our first summer of profiling. We've kind of been keeping an eye out for opportunities to look at some of the work we've been doing and pull it together in a larger funded project. And this past year with the RFP for the Sea Grant 2026 to 2028 research program or call for research proposals, there was some headings that aligned well with what we were doing, and particularly ones around coastal resilience and community engagement and trying to bring science to the communities. And Nate and I have been looking for opportunities for a while, and this one really lined up well. So we put together a proposal. We've talked about it briefly. We'll highlight it again. Project scheduled to start February 1st. Obviously, with the government shutdown and things still pending, my guess is that got pushed. How far, we don't know yet. But we'll start sometime in 2026, and the project goes for 2 years or so from that date. It's to give you a scope, it's a large project, but not a massive project in terms of funding. It's 2 years at capped at $300,000. Our proposal's a little less than that. So we're not talking about millions from NSF, but it's a decent sized project that'll let us get a lot done, we think. So we titled it Bluff to Beach because obviously with the island, there's a lot of bluffs and there's a lot of beaches. And we have a few, as Nate said, the real objective here is to pull together a few different data sources we've been compiling in a little bit of an ad hoc way, mostly when some of it we were working in my lab, or I needed some student projects, or I was just bored and messing around with ArcMap. But we were trying to quantify bluff erosion at a couple of different time scales, one of which being century scale. And most people who have lived out here for a while have seen the stone wall map, the one on the left from 1886. That's a NOAA T sheet or topographic sheet that we've regeo-referenced. It's because of all the stone wall intersections, I think pretty tight on its accuracy in terms of real coordinates. So we use that to delineate the bluff edge in 1886. And for the most part, it seems like they did a really nice job surveying the island back then. We compare that to LiDAR data, and we have airborne LiDAR data that's reliable starting around 2011 up through present, and hopefully some more recent stuff in the last year or so, that we can then use that topography to compare at the century scale how much the bluffs have changed. So you can see on the left 1886, and the middle panel is 2018 or 2022 LiDAR. I don't remember which one it is. And we've just showing the bluff crest at both places. So then we can measure how much it changes between those timescales. We also have the shoreline change maps. Those have been out now since 2016 or 2018. They use imagery through 2016. I think we actually published them in 2018. They are on the CRMC website. They are the kind of state shoreline change maps that were produced with students in my lab. And you can go every 50 meters or 100 meters along the island and see how much it's changed, in this case, between 1951 and 2016. The reason we use 1951 is those were the first vertical aerial imagery that we could actually georeference and get into real space. There are 1939 images, but they're so washed out, it's hard to see anything of note on the beach to georegister them to get them into real coordinates. So we can look further back by looking at the shoreline on the old map, but we also want to update those shoreline change maps because 2016, it's only a few years post Sandy. So there may be some influence on the shoreline position from that, but also we want to capture the more recent storms. So this will be a combination of either aerial photographs or on-ground surveying of the high tide line as part of this project. We also want to get at how much sediment's moving around, particularly in terms of how much is coming out of the bluff and going to the beaches. So this has two different scales to it. You can see, obviously, the bluff change is episodic, as we were talking as we drove around today. That site on the left is the lighthouse in April 2018. The middle panel is April 2019. The maximum retreat, depending on how you measure it there, is 25 meters. That was in one large slump. And these frequently happen in the spring, combination. So it's going to be a combination of trying to look at the beach grain sizes around the entire perimeter of the island at some reasonable spacing, and then looking at it in the bluffs and comparing those two. So we can get at least at a first order, meaning kind of island wide, big picture, what's the sediment flux around there. The picture on the right comes from some work done by some Brown University folks, age dating some of the geologic units out here. But our bluff sampling would probably look something like that. Now, Judy mentioned one of the applicable or practical parts of this is in a lot of states, well, not a lot, in a few states where they do coastal protection structures along bluffs, they have a requirement for an offset of beach compatible sediment to be contributed to the system, so that if you said in California, your seawall was going to impound 1,000 cubic meters of sand per year, the homeowner has to, at least every few years, put an equal amount of sediment onto the beach as beach replenishment. So this would allow us to quantify that for different sites around the island. So that's one of the kind of applicable parts of it. So the general workflow, we're thinking, depending on when the funding actually starts, we'd first start getting all of our GIS computer data compiled. If we assume we get a spring start date or early summer, I'm not coming out here to do field work in June, July, or August. It's just a little too nuts out here. But in the fall, we'd come out and start the field work, meaning the sediment sampling, at least of the beaches, maybe of some of the bluffs as well, map the high tide lines, and kind of get our head around the second part of the project. But it would be a 2-year project, and we'll talk in here about how we interact with the committee and the community as we go through that.
Did you say anything with Jason?
Oh, right. So also part of the LiDAR work is short-term changes. So not just looking at these decadal or century scale changes, but also bringing in Jason Parent from URI, who will do some drone-based work at some selected sites, possibly sites that Drew Hyatt and I at Eastern have been working on already, to look at really short-term, like seasonal changes to the bluff as well. So we can get our head around processes as well as total volume, meaning are we losing sediment at those sites because of waves, because of groundwater, because of surface water, and try to get at some of the processes involved, not just kind of the big picture sediment changes. All right, keep going. Your call.
Sure. So yeah, kind of third objective of this project is really to develop some new tools, both to house the project data that we're talking about collecting. We're going to be generating new digital shorelines and transects and digitizations of the bluff crest. So we are going to develop a ArcGIS hub site that will house all this, and it'll be open to members of the committee, the public, to come and download data, visualize it, and so forth. So there, I just have a screenshot here of an example. This is actually an example of a web map that Brian and some colleagues made to digitize the shoreline change maps for the south shore of the state up into sort of the Narragansett portion of Narragansett Bay. So it's interactive. You can go and, click on features and it'll tell you what the date of that particular shoreline is. If you click on a transect, it'll tell you what the long-term and short-term erosion rates at those transects are. And so we're going to develop something similar that will also hopefully be able to house the sediment data as well, the sediment size distributions. So I think that'll be actually a really important resource going forward, just understanding where on the island there is beach compatible material housed in the bluffs, where those feeder bluffs are.
Yeah.
And then the second tool that we're proposing to develop is something to house and visualize the beach profile data that Brian and all of you have, or many of you have been involved in collecting over the last decade or so. So there are a few examples of that I have linked here. I'm going to stop and reshare again to show you some of these. Let's see. Okay, so we're back here. So this is one that is, very, very sort of basic in its development stage right now, but this is being developed by one of our colleagues, JP Walsh at URI, one of his graduate students, and we can collaborate with them in terms of potentially using this code for this new portal, but basically this allows you to see the profiles collected at certain sites. You can turn sites on and off. You can turn dates on and off. Right now, what we're viewing is all the beach profiles collected in the year 2025 at this particular site. This is at Moonstone Beach in South Kingstown. But it also, allows you to deselect and just turn on certain dates, and you can query the actual profiles that, I guess this is what happens when you try to do a live demo.
With a very new tool.
Yeah. Let's see, it's thinking. Okay, well, I'll try Narrabeen. Let's see. I have it back in the PowerPoint. No. Okay. So I think there's something going on here with my web connection. So anyway, you get the idea from the first image that it will be interactive, and it'll be a way for the committee, the volunteers who collect this data to actually be able to interact with it, and it'll all be up on the web for the public as well.
So we've been struggling with where to put things like the GIS data that Jean-Louis and his student at University of Michigan have been developing. So I mean, they have this capability. They've had been meeting with our town planner and with the town manager about where that could be cited. There are restrictions on the town website and our ability to sort of interact with it that maybe we wouldn't have with a URI-based site. Right now, our climate resilience officer our coordinator is with the Nature Conservancy. And so we've been flirting with the Nature Conservancy about whether or not we could keep it on that website, which is great as long as Nora is there. But if what I don't want to do is get all spun up and 2 years later, we've got nobody managing it
Mhm.
because these are electronic systems that require care and feeding. And, and if one thing changes, there's like a whole cascade, as you know, of other things that change. So is this something that we could come to you with and say here that we have this capacity or this capability? Is this something that we could put on your website? Is that a conversation that we could have?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
So ArcGIS hubs are designed to be basically, and Meredith Metcalf, who's also on the project, who's at Eastern, she's the expert on this, but the hubs are basically a clearinghouse for different datas and different ways of visualizing data. Now, it's obviously a year or so out before we're able to develop and have this going, obviously once the project starts. But yeah, I think other data could be added to make it as, if a new project comes in and looks at groundwater and you have a new point data set of that, I'm sure that could get included in there. I think the long-term stuff, once we build it, if Meredith's building it, is probably going to live through, Eastern's ArcGIS Online system. We'd have to think about how do we maintain it, but it's
Right.
not a $300,000 project to keep that going. So yeah, I think we could continue to talk about that. But our intention is to make this project is to make the data available to the community, to the CRC, to everybody interested in managing and scientifically understanding the island, making it available. That's the goal of that part of it. And to be clear, that's not just us saying that's wanted to be a goal. As part of the research project with Sea Grant, it has to be done, right? If we want to ever be in Sea Grant's good graces to get funded again in the future, right, we need to meet our objectives. And this is definitely one of them. A big part of Sea Grant's projects are the community outreach aspects of it. So that's a big part. I think there's two big reasons we got funded besides the project being scientifically meritorious, is between the demonstration site and I think longer term, the beach profile involvement with the island was a big part of it. And the other is what we'll talk about here, is that there's good community engagement kind of already set up as a framework. It's not hypothetical, we're already doing it. I think that made the project really attractive to funders.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Information as a layperson. So when I look at a screen full of graphs about things I know very little of, I also look for a summary statement underneath, which includes the implications of the information that's on that graph. Will you be doing that?
Yeah, we're going to have examples of a schematic of how do you read this graph and what is the graph telling you? Yeah, we'll have stuff like that. And I think, we're going to talk about here as we develop this stuff. That's what we will want. Not now, but not that I'm telling you to not talk right now, Saoirse, but in the future, when we start to develop these, we're going to want to hear, how is this going to be useful? What can we do to make it more useful?
Right, because the layman may not be comfortable around that information, and it would force the town to hire professionals to interpret it. And you know where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I think, right, somewhere in there, present and answer questions about it. Somewhere in there, we have the ability to take in what is useful and what we need to think about revising.
We plan to, try to engage with the committee. The Coastal Resilience Committee is our primary partner on this. So we had a letter of support from Judy and on behalf of the committee for this grant. And so as our primary partner, we are hoping to engage as needed. Quite frequently, if possible. At least once a year, we would like to come out, have a meeting with the committee. So it's a 2-year project, and then a meeting for the public at the end of the project or near end of the project, where we can talk about the research done and answer questions from the public. And yeah, we'll definitely be.
Well, and you can
cognizant.
iterate with us. If you're developing this the software tool, Sosha is an excellent guinea pig. Because she doesn't think about this the way bench scientist might think about it. And she's thinking about it from her point of view as a community member and as, you know, a member of the planning committee or whatever. And so I use SOCIA. I don't like the way that sounds, but I use SOCIA often to interpret what I've written or what I'm saying, because her understanding is so different. She's a very good filter for me. And I think the CRC will be, the Coastal Resilience Committee will be a good filter for you guys. You know, how is this is how we're thinking about it. How does this look to you? That's, I just think that's critically important. I was involved for years in the hurricane game, and the FEMA maps use the red to blue color scheme in the complete opposite way than NOAA does. It did. When we first, you know, what was bad for FEMA looked good to, you know, was blue and not nice for us and at NOAA. And so, you know, stuff like that, like how does the town think about itself? And we won't uncover that until we're actually doing the project. But I think that's really exciting way for us to help be part of your project, is use us as guinea pigs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, the idea of these web tools is for you to use
Right.
them, right? They're probably not going to be used as much by the research community. It's to take that research and to get it out there. And then lastly on here, we have in our timeline of work to do some sort of a workshop at the end, a training style workshop for the committee, for anybody else that's interested on how you use these things, what sort of maintenance there's going to need. Yeah, we can have the discussion about the long-term hosting and everything like that. But yeah, that's good. That'll be on, you know, our radar from very early on.
And even at the training, how is the data collected? So what's reasonable, you know, why didn't we do,
Microphone.
you know? I think you guys are on Zoom recording all that. Okay. And part of that training, you know, we can also talk about how the data was collected. What are the limitations of the data? What are the advantages of the data? So that people can understand what kind of questions and what kind of things can be done with it and what kind of things might be beyond the scope of it. I think that's all part of that training that I think would be useful for the community, the town staff that are involved in this. Hopefully all benefit from it. I mean, that's the whole goal of this project is, you know, Nate and I are coastal geologists. We like looking at this kind of stuff because it's interesting, but we want it to be meaningful for the community by the end of the project, that there's data that can continue to be used for good science-based management of the resources out here.
The Coastal Resilience Committee tries to do a summer workshop for the community every year. So as we are getting more ready with this rollout, that maybe a training workshop on these tools would be a really fun thing to do, because then we get the cottagers, the people who, you know, come out for the summer, or whoever's here. We typically hold it in, you know, late July, early August, and so we can net the most people. And so this would be, I think that's just my opinion. It's up to the whole committee, but I think something like this, you know, besides doing it in the winter or when it's most convenient for you guys, that we might, you know, draw you out. And it might not be, maybe it's like after the project's open and it's the next summer. But I think this would be a really good topic for us for a summer training workshop to teach people how to use the tools. We could maybe even get, you know, Malcolm or somebody out here from that program to talk about storm tools. And yeah.
I think towards the end of the project
Yeah,
would probably
exactly.
be the appropriate time once it's been developed. And
Yeah.
that would give us a couple of years to work on getting Brian out here for the summer date.
And I just want to add that part of the Sea Grant project is, you know, that outreach and communication piece. And we have a lot of communicators involved to make sure that the information is presented in a way that it is understood by the public and received, and not just by the scientists.
Yeah, community outreach is pivotal, really central to what the committee is here on Block Island. And so we do this summer workshop, but we also have had other special workshops through the year. And I think we can arrange as many as are required by your grant.
Okay.
Well, I mean, to that end, let's assume things go forward and the federal government doesn't further implode and we get funded, pencil it in summer 2028.
Okay. Okay.
I'll
So-
even come out.
Well, anyway, that's all we had in terms of slides and material to present. Happy to keep talking or answer questions.
Yeah,
but-
are there any questions? Because I think the committee business we can zip through that. Yeah, a lot of it we can table and because it's more important to speak with you guys while you're here. Is there anything else from the audience for these guys? Oh, yeah, come on up, Sosha. Yeah, come on up, Sosha.
Voted down by the town council, we considered putting, and I don't know what you call them, but they're like mats over the dunes.
Mhm.
And do you, what are your thoughts or feelings about those mats?
Are
they
these
good
for like for wheelchair?
Well, right now the dune paths get really divoted out by the beach traffic
Mhm.
through the summer. It heals in the winter, but it's quite a divot. So we had two ideas about the beach paths. One was to at the beach exit part, you can, if those on the other side of the table can look down below me here. And when people hit the beach side, they all fan out. And so it's that we're creating a regressive divot in the dune. And so one of the ideas is to put a triangle of grasses in there so you can go off to the south and go off to the north, but we're still providing some a little bit protection of the actual pathway. The other one is to use like those blue mats or a rolled out wood. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different technologies so that when the people are moving along those paths, they're not digging the sand out with each footstep, that and the sand is being held down in place. And I think at the town council meeting, when we presented these options, the various options from GZA, though the town did not go for the mats, but they really liked the planting. But so that's why Sosha's asking what your opinion is. They're out on Cape Cod, they're out on the islands, Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard have them. And they seem like, at least are the people I spoke with when I was there, whoever the ranger was on duty, they were like, yeah, we love them because we can drive on them. Or, we can put a cart on them. We can wheelchairs. They make it wheelchair. So it's really broadened the accessibility of their beaches, actually.
Yeah, and it tells people where to go. It's a
Boy, that's a big piece, and it might even actually keep them on the paths and off the dunes.
So, I mean, the Moby mats is what I think they're called, M-O-B-I, Moby. I think that's the name.
Like for mobile.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have no geologic strong feelings one way or the other. I think they might help people stay on the path. I think the ADA accessibility is a nice avenue for some parts of it because does allow people with limited mobility, easier time to get to the beach. And I'm an advocate of everybody should get to the beach. I like your planting idea of steering people too. I think if I put my Watch Hill Conservancy Napa Tree hat on, one of the things they found there is if you show people the right way to go and where to go, a lot of the people, not all of them, but a lot of them
Right.
use the paths. And one of the things they did, because they have a lot of boat access people, so not just people that walk on from mainland Rhode Island, but come in by boat and then come on to the beach that way. They put posts up, big yellow 4x4s, and it shows where the paths are very clearly, so you don't get people making what they call social trails where they just wander
Right.
through the dunes. They keep them to the 6 or 7 main crossovers. So that does direct the people more where you want them to go. So I think if you had a way of doing that at the end of the path, yeah, I think it's nice as long as it's, non-invasive species and all that kind of stuff. Sure, I think it's a neat idea. But I'm no geologic thing that the Moby mats are going to prevent
nothing.
massive dune erosion or vice versa.
No, we have two large openings where cars can literally drive onto the beach, right? Ideally, they should be closed. But
I'm not going to call. I don't think I don't agree with. I don't know. We've litigated that about 5 times out here.
we don't want emergency vehicles not to be able to come onto the beach, right?
Yeah.
So in your opinion, what is the best way to limit these cutouts?
have directed paths where you want the people to go with parking and access, and direct them where you want them to go. And most of the people will do the right thing if you show them where to go,
Including cars.
including the cars if you have parking and stuff clearly marked for them, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think out here it gets obviously chaotic in the summer, but
Yeah.
they did, and I won't speak to all of the data they had, but the Conservancy did some informal monitoring of this where Pete, August, actually, I helped in one of the surveys. They would go sit facing away from the water. So you're the only person on the beach not facing the water, and watch where the people were coming onto the beach for like a 4-hour period. And by the second or third year of doing the signposts, it was almost 100% compliance with people staying on the paths versus just wandering into the dunes. So show them where they want to go, and I think you'll have some success. And it's very low effort, low maintenance to do that kind of stuff.
Finally, it's tied in with the past. There has been a debate back and forth about the emergency of fixing the parking lot. My understanding is that there is infrastructure underneath that parking lot because of the cable. And there's also a different kind of soil that was put back from the soil that used to be there. So doesn't it make sense to reason that that parking lot is there to stay regardless of where or if we move the beach pavilion or not? Because it doesn't make sense to me to let that whole parking lot go back to dune when repairmen may need to get access to that infrastructure. So the deductive reasoning in my book says keep the parking lot functioning. And
Thank you. Is there anyone else? I'd like to take about 15 minutes just to do regular committee business. Oh, yes.
I have to say this.
Oh, please come.
Same thing I always say. I'm
Thank you.
Martha Ball. I've always lived here. I've always lived down the neck, always gone past that beach house from the day it was built. I know you've seen this photograph. I have put this photograph online. I have put this photograph in the newspaper. I have put this in files. It's a 1960 postcard, an aerial. The beach house has not moved. Everybody loves to talk about this, the beach house. We lost half the parking lot to the dunes coming in. And moving the beach house, it just seems like a fool's errand. When I was a kid, the state ran the beach. And I know there's people in town don't agree with any of this, but the dunes stayed out where they belonged. They didn't migrate. And what's happening now is the sand comes in and nobody will clear off the beach. As I think when Kim Gaffett was first warden, I used to come to council meetings and say, at one point she said, "You're not going to talk about the beach house, are you?" I said, "Yeah, I am." And the sand would build up, and when I say in front of the beach house, I mean the landward side, because to me that's the front. And then the sand builds up, vegetation takes root, and then it becomes a coastal feature, and then it can't be dug out. And so we're in this cycle. We're in this cycle again. There used to be big gaps on either side of the beach house. I feel like we want to, I've been listening to this for 40 years. We want bold measures. We want political will. The South Shore of Rhode Island is a much bigger mess than we are. The winds shifted a couple of years ago. And everybody over there was losing their mind like it had never happened before. And I said, you've been really lucky, folks. And I just can't listen. I can't listen to it. I knew I shouldn't have come to this meeting. Thank you for indulging me. if I come to another one of these and the same issue comes up, I will get up again. I will talk about my postcard that I have on my phone and I can send to any of you at any time if you haven't already seen it 12 times. And just remind you that you're not going to solve things with these. You're just going to exacerbate what's going on. And I have absolutely no scientific background whatsoever. I've just always lived here and always gone past that beach house at least twice a day.
Thank you. Thank you, Martha. Okay, I'm going to move on. Yes. Oh, Jose. Yes.
Hello. I've been here for a couple of years, and I've seen that the garage, the parking lot, it gets inundated, and I was like, "Wow, what's going on?" And then I started to get involved and found the committee and what's kind of figured out what's happening. I was kind of excited of hearing everybody and the option of moving the beach house, and now listening other points of view. But I think that there's hope. We may not have to move it, but maybe we just have to elevate it, and everything can happen around it, and we can like completely close that, no openings, and just have a system that it starts from the beach house, and then you have the walk that connect you into the beach. I think there are many things that we could do that could be done, but making sure that not that everybody is happy, but that we are worried about or thinking about what's going to happen in the future. I mean, you're saying that the road's going to go eventually, but before the road, the beach house is going to go for sure. So I think that we don't necessarily have to move it. Maybe we can put it on wheels, or we can put it on something and put it on top. We don't have to sacrifice the parking lot if we create a very strong barrier. I mean, the dunes. So I think there are a lot of things that could be done.
Thank you.
And I think that's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Jose. Okay, very quickly, we have 10 minutes. Can I hear a motion to approve the minutes from our November 4th meeting? And people who don't want to sit through this part, but yeah, please feel free to leave. I know that most of you are here to see the the Coastal Institute. But can I hear a motion? Okay, a second? All in favor, let's see, any discussion of the minutes? Okay, thank you. Okay, that'll get fixed. So with that, any other? Okay, all in favor of approving the November minutes indicate by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. I have a report from, let's see, Town Council update. That's the next one. There's a Town Council meeting at 7 p.m. tonight. Unfortunately, I cannot attend. I'm going off on the 6 o'clock boat. So if there is a member of the committee that can be there, there's a couple of items of interest. I know, George, you were going to be there for the shellfish thing, but there's also a discussion on paying to park on Block Island. And I'd like to hear what that, I'll listen in, but I'd like to have somebody here to sort of represent us and just to find out, like, if you do pay to park, if people do pay to park, what happens to that money? Does it go into the general fund, or does it get applied to, the paying for the dumpsters downtown, or does it get applied to coastal resilience projects? And so I just feel like there's some opportunity, some energy around this that we should be paying attention to it. So just put it out there if somebody can be here for that. I don't believe Allison is here, and she didn't send me anything. Yes. No. We don't have to, we don't have a position. Yeah, we don't need to have a position. I don't think they're going to make it. You know, the point is just to know what's going to happen to that money. Yeah. I do have an update from Nora. And this could be of interest to our Coastal Institute folks. We have gotten permission to use one of the Block Island Power Company utility poles across from Bimmy for one of the overland water level sensors. So this is Sol at Brown. At Brown. And so we're getting closer to confirming the site for that receiver. And this is right across from the Maritime Institute, where on king tides, especially with a storm in the area, we get flooding. And so they use these kinds of sensors in New York City for inundation in the neighborhoods in New York City. There's also a Brown class, environmental science class, that's been working on projects related to resiliency landscaping plantings, which is wrapping up this week. And Nora has been going to see their final presentations so that she'll have some materials to bring back to us and maybe some information about what she's learning from that event. She and, this is Nora, Anne, and Sosha have been meeting regularly to work on the ordinance review and the Citizens Guide to Resiliency. And they hope to have some drafts to share early next year. Very important. And one of the things that Nora did, and Glennie before her, is go through all of our plans, the comprehensive plan, the hazard mitigation plan, all the various plans, and pull out the sea level rise, coastal resilience related topics so that we know where they are in the plans. And if we are going to make recommendations, know where we're going to make an impact on those plans. And finally, the resilience site map, which you have all been, or resilience map site, which you've been hearing about today from Jean-Louis. So Jean-Louis, Nora, and Allison have been talking about where to put it, who should be in control of it, linking to existing pages at the Nature Conservancy, or anyway, so our conversation today could be very helpful in our long-term determination of where that should be. And the main thing is that it's go to a place where it's going to be supported. We do here at Block Island Coastal Resilience Committee, we have a budget of $2,000 a year that I've never spent. And the town manager is like begging me to spend it. But so we can throw a few shekels at things. And if I need a budget increase, I can ask for one. I mean, I don't know if I'll get it, but I can ask. Let's see, update from me. I think I'm done for the day at that. I included in the agenda that I sent to you all a list of our working groups and points of contact, just so you can see how we think about ourselves. So I don't know if there are any reports. Oh, Anne, please.
Actually, a couple of questions first. Since Allison's not here, I was wondering if we'd heard anything about the pending grant since we were supposed to hear in November.
I have not heard
Okay.
yet. No.
And is there any update on the Corn Neck Road grant and what's next steps with that? Or it was sort of the last meeting, I think you reported it was sort of on hold, and what things are moving towards design, and there was still a stakeholder engagement. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. Just what can we expect with that?
Mike's not on anymore, rats.
Oh.
I might have
That's
to.
what he was on.
put you on hold.
Okay.
And that's something that we can ask, and I can get that information back to you all about, because that's just facts. It's not a discussion.
Right,
it's just
yeah.
That's just a list of facts.
Those were questions I had on my mind, but a few updates as well on the outreach. The Block Island Residents Association did vote to approve the idea for a community event that they will co-host with us with Leah Hill from
Nantucket, the
Nantucket,
Coastal Resilience.
yeah.
So we're hoping to do it. Have you heard anything on dates? Okay, okay, but hopefully late January, early February, right? Yeah.
So
Okay.
she's at Nantucket, and we want to bring her in to talk about how they develop their plan and how much money it cost and what
Like, lessons learned they're way ahead of us.
yeah, what we want we want to be a mini version of them, but I don't know if you've ever seen their plan, but it's about this thick. It's several volumes and it's really exhaustive. And they obviously had a lot of money to do it. And but we'd like to hear from her, what can we do? You know, learning from them. And
Yeah.
so we're very grateful. Thank you.
Yeah,
guys.
so, and then on the Great Salt Pond marsh migration, I did get to speak to Wenley Ferguson from Save the Bay. And she shared with me what she's done with other communities and gave me some tips going back to look at the marsh migration map and the tier 1 properties. Sort of came to the conclusion that we probably don't have sort of the type of property in terms of acreage, I guess, that sort of warrants the kind of grant funding that she has been involved with other towns. But I'm going to have a subsequent conversation with her, kind of ground truth that, what I came to after
Thank you.
looking at additional sources she gave to me. So I just wanted to update on that.
Thank you.
But
Yeah, please. And then this will be the final word, Nora. Nora, Sosha.
yeah, so the town manager put a halt on the developing the parking lot. They put a halt to it, and my question is, how much of that money that was originally intended to be spent on a 60% design for that parking lot is still available?
Right. And we're right. And that's an Allison question. And I think that's a really important follow-up with when we have Mike and Allison. You don't want to hear speculation from me on that. I have just some information, but not all of it. And so in January, it's a business meeting. We have to figure out what our agenda is for the year. What do we want to accomplish at our summer confab? What do offices, committee? Yeah, the committees can get rejuggled, and what do you want to work on? What do I want to work on? That kind of stuff. So it'll be more of a businessy meeting in January. And look at that, it's 4:30. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Second? Yes, the second, thank you. Okay, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Thank you, everybody. And thanks for your attention and for coming to our meeting today. And thank you to the Coastal Institute representatives. Really appreciate this.
Thanks for having us.